Hey guys, welcome to another video. This is continuation of our API automation series. And in our last video, we have already seen about authentication, headers, and post requests. These are the topics that we have already discussed, right? In our today's video, we'll talk more on this authentication part, and also we'll see how to perform the update calls, right? And also, if time allows us, we'll see how to use these calls there in the script, right? We'll be using the rest assured here is assured. Okay, so we'll be using the rest assured library for doing the rest calls through our javascript, right? So these are the things that we are trying to see in today's video. And before we jump to the next part, I'll try to just recall the what we have learned in our last video. We have seen that authentication, and just to be more on this detail of the authentication, I'll try to say you that why authentication is needed, or what is the how the authentication work, right? So I also have mentioned in our last class that there are different type of authentication. Let's say I'll say authentication. So you can see there is different type of authentication, and the first one is basic authentication, right? It is called as basic HTTP authent, right? And after that you will be having BRR authentication. Okay, another is OATH, auth, OAUTH, auth 1.0, and another is OAUTH, auth 2.0. And there are another type of authentication also, but most of the cases in industry right now people are using either BRR auth or auth 2.0. Okay, you will be seeing in our real-time project any of this BRB type of token or auth system is being used, right? Authentication. Okay. Now I'll show you how show you that how these token things are working in actual scenario. Let's say I have a client system that is, let's say my this is my laptop or computer or mobile, right? This is my client system. It can be my laptop or it can be my mobile devices, right? So whatever the application that you are accessing into your client system, that is trying to communicate with a server, right? Let's say this is my API server or application server, right? So this is going to my API server. Okay, this is API server. So this API server, because of there is a lot of restriction, right? So this API server do not want anyone to access its database, right? Do not want anyone to make some changes into the database of this API server. No one want like that way, right? So this is, I'll say this is my client. Okay, so this is going to my client, and this is application API server. There is a communication between two way. It is request and response format, and that API server now will ask the client to have some authentication, right? So without authentication they are not going to allow you to access their API server. So what happened actually in this case, for doing the authentication, there is a authentication server is also there. So let's say this is my authentication server, and this authentication server, what it does actually, when you do some request, when you send the authentication request to authentication server, it generates a token, or it generates a key, access key. Okay, it can be your token, it can be your access key, anything. Okay, so let's say it is your token, right? So it generates a token, it returns the token to back to you, right? So this is my authentication server. Okay, let's say is authentication server. So this is my authentication server, and which is generating a token, it is reverting back to you, and you will be passing that token to the API server, right? Now the question is how this API server will understand that the token you have sent to the API server, that is correct or not, right? So for that reason there is another place. Let's say this is my placeholder where this API token, generated API token, this server is going to place. Okay, so it is actually keeping the token there in the another secret place also, and this API server will be communicating to this. Okay, and it will check whether that it will get the API token from which is available there in this particular database, and it will verify the token that you have passed from your request. So once the request match, it will verify that okay, you are a valid user, or you are the authenticated user, right? So this is what we have seen. And remember one thing, guys, this authentication this tokens have their some validity. Might be the validity is like it can be expire within 30 minutes, or it can expire within 1 hour, or it can be sometime, for depending on the application and the configuration things, it can be depend from different minutes to hours to different days also, right? So it's completely dependent on how it is configured. So if I show you that one of the token that we have there in my Postman setup, let's say this is my login API. Here you can see there is one key parameter is there, and that there the value I for now I have set as 1, right? So that means what means this API is going to expire within 1 minute, right? After just 1 minute complete, and the API will get expired, right? Actually, right now let's generate the token with expert time is 1 minute, so that the token will be invalidate after 1 minute, right? So if I do the send request, you can see uh, I got a one response. Here you can see I have one response token as well, right? So if you try to copy, so let's say I'm trying to select it, and I'm copying it, and I'll do the get request get user, right? Here you can see I have to set the headers detail, and header detail there is a key authorization, right? This is the key that I have to set the token that we received, right? So I'll just replace the old data and with the new data, and I'll send the send request, right? You can see I got the response. But the same token, if you're trying to use after 1 minute, that will not work, right? So this is how token actually that validity works. Most of the cases the token is not 1 minute. This is just for a testing purpose. I kept it as 1 minute, but it can be 30 minutes or 1 hour, or can be it can be or one day also, right? So that doesn't matter. We have done already the request for 1 minute, and I think 1 minute is already completed. So let's see, we were trying to get the user details once again by using this same API authentication token, right? So let's say I'm trying to hit the call once again. Now you can see we got the status code as 401, that is saying that unauthorized. Remember the status code meaning of 401, it is always mean that unauthorized, right? Another one is 403. Here you can see that is saying that forbidden. Okay, remember the meaning of the status code. Not all the status code you have to remember, but yeah, couple of status code that you have to always remember. Here you can see it is saying that token expired, right? So this is something how so you can say if the token is not valid, then the application is not allowing to get the user details, right? So this is how it is actually protecting unauthenticated users to access the application. Okay, now let's see, and let's go and see how we can implement this API calls, API REST calls. Let's say get request, post request, right, and authentication details, how to implement those things into our script, right? So I'll take you to the IntelliJ, and here if you see I'll take you to the form.xml file first, and here you can see I have added two libraries, two dependency. First one is your REST assured. You can get these REST assured dependency into your form.xml file, and another is dependency is JSON path, right? These two dependencies required for you. JSON path is needed for if you for extracting the data from the response, right? So if let's say you are getting response, and that response you want to extract, so for that reason you can use the JSON path. There are different approach also to get the response, but JSON path is one of the you can see mostly used and the straightforward approach, you can say. So let's try to see, we create a request, and we see how we can automate the test cases by using our Java code, right? So I'll create a package here. So I'll see my REST API calls, or say let's say test. Okay, so inside of this I'll take one class. So let's say REST API test. Okay, inside of this I'll create one test method. Let's say test, and I'll say public void, and I'll say test get API. Okay, so now what we are going to do, there are multiple approach, guys. So I'll show you different type of approach for a single type of request, how you can go ahead with the different approaches, right? So first of one of the approach is chaining method. So you can say it like this way. Let's say you can say directly you can call REST assured, and then you can say given, and then you can see set you can set the, let's say, base URI, right? So you can set the base URI. What is the base URI is going to be? The base URI is something from here to here, right? So I can say base URI is this. After that, let's say I'm talking about one get method. Let's say I want to get the product, right? So I want to get a single product. Let's say get single product. So for this, uh, this is going to my endpoint URL, and I do not have need to set any headers here. Only I have to set the method, and I have to set the base URI and endpoint URL. So I have already done with the base URL, so I'll just copy this endpoint URL, and I'll say dot, and the method I want to say is a get method, right? Inside of this I have to pass the endpoint URL. So once you do this, you will be the request will get sent to the server, right? And it will return you response. You can store the response into a response. Okay, so I'll take this response, and I'll store into response key. I'll say this. Okay, so once you do this, the whatever the response, the request you have sent to this particular server, it will return you response into this particular object reference, and you now from there you can get the, let's say I want to print the response dot status code, right? And at the same time I want to print the body as well. So I'll say response dot get body, and say pretty print. Pretty print is kind of print, actually it is printing your JSON data, because the response get body, when you say response dot get body, it is going to return you JSON response, right? But if you want to use the data in a pretty format, because in if you are not using pretty print, then it is going to print the JSON data in raw format, right? So to print it in easily understandable, so you can just convert it to pretty print. Now let's run this program, and we'll see. Awesome. here you can see we got the response, and this is the status code that we have printed, and this is the status body, there is the response body that we just got from the response, right? The same thing, if you hit this API, you can see we are getting the same response from here also, right? So this is how you can do the API calls from your script, from the JavaScript. So I'll show you another approach. This is something called as a chaining approach, right? You There is no break between the lines, so you are doing one by one calls, right? There is no line break. So there is another approach you can follow. I'll show you the same request. Let's see, I'm creating another test method, and I'll see public void, and I'll see test get API call. Okay, I'll just giving the different name. So here is what you can see. You can do. Let's say I'm doing uh, one by one series operation, right? So you can say ratio dot given. Inside of this given, you can uh, not get, it should be given. Okay, so ratio dot given, and you set it, and after that you can say ratio dot base URL, right? And you can set the base URL there also. So let's say I'll say ratio dot base URL, and this way you also do, and then after that you can say given. So you can say given dot get, and after that inside of the get, you can just pass the API endpoint URL, right? So similar way we can store this response. So let's store it here, right? And you can print the response. So let's say I'm going to print this out, and inside of this is out, you can see response dot status code, and you can print the body as well. So let's say response dot body, and then pretty print, right? So you can run this code. See, we're getting the same response, right? So there is no difference between this. So these are the approaches, but guys, so whatever you like. So this is a chaining approach. There is no break between the two lines, but here we are breaking the lines into different we're breaking it into different lines, right? So we're first initially we're setting the URL, after that we're giving the doing the get operation. I'll show you quickly the post operation also. Let's say um at the test, and I'll say public void, and I'll say test post API, right? So here you can see inside of this, let's say I'm going to use this approach, and for post request I need body as well, right? So I need to set the body. So let's say I'm going to get single product, I'm going to post a post request. Let's say add a new product, right? So for this case, my API endpoint is going to be this one. So let's say I'm storing that instead of I'm removing this, let's say I'll remove this one, and here you can see, let's say string and point is equal to this, right? And for post request I need body also, right? So this is my body, JSON body is going to be. So I'll do set it first. So let's say my body, or you can say payload is equals. So this is my JSON payload is going to be, and after that what I need the headers also, right? So the header I need to set. So this is the key, header key is going to be. So let's copy it, and here I have set the base URL. After that, let's say I'm trying to set the header, right? So you will see um, given dot header, and inside of this I have to pass the key and value, right? So the value is going to be application slash JSON. So copy it and paste it over here. So I have done with the header also. After that, you can set the body. So let's say my body is payload that we have stored already. This payload is nothing but the payload we have done the setup over here, right? So the payload also we have set. Now the next task is to send the post request. So you can say given dot post, right? There you can see the post request is there, and inside of this I have to pass the endpoint URL, right? And once you do this, you can store this response. Let's say I'll copy this, and this is going to store into my response key, right? And the rest of the code is going to be same. I'll just print the status code and the print the body that we are getting. So let's run this code. You can there's some issue, unsupported character set 415, I think. Okay, let's do chain approach here. I think there's some issue with this, so we can say let's do chain request. Instead of this, what I'll say, given and dot base URI, and this base URI I'm going to set this one. Okay, so So this is the base URI I have set already. And after that, what you can do, you can set the headers, right? So similar thing, just copy it from here to here. So I set the header. After that, you can set the body. So let's say payload, and you can send the post call, right? And inside of this, I have to pass the endpoint URL, right? And so this should be my response now. Instead of recessive.base URL, this should be my response, right? So let's remove this code and let's run it. See, the response we got as response code is 200, and the body also we get, and the same response you'll be getting from over here also. See, this is the response code, and sorry, this is the response body, and this is the response code you are getting from the request, right? So this is how you can implement the post call as well. So here you can see we have this data in our hand, and after that you can send you can do a chain request. This is the you can see first we initiated the REST issue, and after that we send the base URL, and after that we set the header and body and the post request, right? So this is how you can implement API calls into your test script, and after that you can get the response code and body. So this is the basic of how you can implement your API calls, means REST call, get call, or post call. So these are the things that how you can implement. In I'll close this video over here, and in our next video we'll see how this request we are getting, right? So how to extract the data from the request response, and how to verify. Let's say I want to verify some particular key value, right? The key response is properly coming or not, right? That is our ultimate job actually for in our test case. If you are not doing any validation, so there is, I think, no use of this particular test case, right? So we'll be doing some verification. Also we'll see how to use the how to use that authentication part, and how to implement that in our script, right? That we'll see in our next video. Until then, I'll stay. If you have any issue or any doubt or any clarification needed, just let me know. I'll try to clear your doubt on that.